is the finish of the Crespira climb, and remember that was the famous climb that springboarded Fausto Coppi to his victory here way back in 1953. And there's the field, the professionals, a little bit jaded, I think, coming to a World Championship at this time of the year. This is the way now, bringing the World Cycling Championship out to the end of the season. That says it all, doesn't it? Alex Zula having a nice yawn, his job perhaps done already, having given Switzerland a world title earlier this week in the time trial at the expense of the British rider Chris Boardman. Another world champion of years gone by in Colorado Springs, in fact, Gianni Bugno, showing a return to form, and the Italians always treat the world title race as a most important happening. They've said they want 3 men in every move. Well, I wonder if they can get such a number. Who would know? Spain without Miguel Indurain, but of course with the defending world champion Abraham Olano, and in fact Olano early in the week had decided not to ride the World Road Race Championship in defence of his crown, won last year in Colombia, but after a poor ride in the time trial he's changed his mind. He's here, and as the time approaches 10 o'clock we'll see if in fact he can put in a great defence of his title. Well, the gun is up. Nervous moments, because nowadays with elite cyclists there are some developing amateur riders of note in the field, as well as the established top riders on the big pro teams. Some seeking one good ride to secure a big contract, others hoping for that ride to keep their contract for next season. There's a lot of movement on the transfer market as the field sprints away to what is quite a difficult circuit today. We've already had some very good racing on it, including the women's road race where Switzerland got the women's world champion, Barbara Heeb. And also we've had the under-23 world championship where the Italians wiped out everybody with the top 4 places, and Figueras was the winner there. There's the course, 15 laps, 252 kilometres. It's going to be a long day in the saddle for those with ambition. Magnificent crowd here, the Swiss pouring out to the roadside, many of them of course Italians, because they've just nipped over the border. The Italians in this Italian speaking part of Switzerland, I think are going to feel very much at home today, as the tempo has started quickly. 2 riders immediately going on the attack as we get another glimpse of the route. Remember the 2 climbs. The first climb is Camano, the top coming at 3 kilometres. The second climb is the Crespira, the top at 12 kilometres. And straight out on the attack, perhaps France using their least experienced rider here, Benoit Salmon, to launch an attack and try and draw the sting of a few. With him is Andrei Zinchenko, who turned pro back in 1994, and he's 24 years of age. There's the peloton. Not surprisingly, in these early laps, too worried about the expected fodder attack, shall I call them. But the pace is good. It's very nippy indeed. Early speed indications, it's already up to 40 kilometres an hour. That's 25 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. And what a great start for Olano, the number 1 defending world champion. There's a little smile on his face there. I don't know whether the crowd are actually saying something, but sure, look at the way they're taking the pictures here. I bet they never thought the defending world champion would stop on the doorstep so early on in the title.
So it's probably be about
no big panic.
25 minutes or so.
Wheel change. Olano knows these early stages. A man of his ability shouldn't be in too much difficulty to rejoin the race. Not so for some of the smaller riders in their first world championship, who may panic and chase back a little bit too quickly and not rejoin the peloton. Anyway, he's off and riding. His teammates, I note, are slipping out the back of the field to help him back. And the gap going up very quickly on these opening laps. 1 minute 46 seconds now for Salmon and Zinchenko. Here comes Olano. And in fact, I said his teammates were dropping out, but I don't see them now, unless he's ridden past them up the climb. But he's back in the peloton.
A day or 2 ago.
It's been a developing year for Abraham Olano, but he still, he may look like Miguel Indurain, but he's not indicating he's going to be like him as a top bike rider yet. So the field all back together with the exception of a couple. Tony Rominger, the champion of Switzerland, in the Swiss national colours there on the front of the race.
So the question is, do I go
great Rominger,
max effort for this
having
race?
lost his world hour record to an absolutely brilliant Chris Boardman. The field the climb. Stringing out, but no big effort here at the moment. The gap, they've lost a little bit on the climb, having Salmon and Zinchenko. Salmon, he turned pro last year, in fact. He's only 22. He is on a French team determined to succeed here today, and as the young whippersnapper of the squad, he's been told to go out front and set the pace and just see what will happen. Zinchenko, 24, turned pro the year before in 1994. They've gone away right from the gun today. Gianni Bugno showing signs of a return to form. You never quite know where you are with Gianni. He's great, he's indifferent, and sometimes he is absolutely useless. And it does annoy his spectators and his fans. The press, of course, he's always falling out with them because of things they say about Gianni. But one thing is for certain, this man has an immense amount of talent. Alberto Ellie comes up and gives him a hand too. They're trying to just keep the tempo here, which is a very fast one, just to limit the escape. Italians always ride to a strict plan, but very often for the Italians, the World Championships does go wrong. Zinchenko, who turned pro back in 1994, and he's 24 years of age. There's the peloton. Not surprisingly, in these early laps, are too worried about the expected fodder attack, shall I call them. But the pace is good. It's very nippy indeed. Early speed indications, it's already up to 40 kilometers an hour. That's 25 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. And what a great start for Olano, the number one defending world champion. There's a little smile on his face there. I don't know whether the crowd are actually saying something, but sure, they're lucky. Look at where they're taking the pictures here. I bet they never thought the defending world champion would stop on the doorstep so early on in the title. No big panic. Wheel change. Olano knows these early stages. A man of his ability shouldn't be in too much difficulty to rejoin the race. Not so for some of the smaller riders in their first world championship who may panic and chase back a little bit too quickly and not rejoin the peloton. Anyway, he's off and riding. His teammates, I note, are slipping out the back of the field to help him back. And the gap going up very quickly on these opening laps. 1 minute 46 seconds now for Salmon and Zinchenko. Here comes Olano. And in fact, I said his teammates were dropping out, but I don't see them now unless he's ridden past them up the climb. But he's back in the peloton. It's been a developing year for Abraham Olano, but he may look like Miguel Indurain, but he's not indicating he's going to be like him as a top bike rider yet. So the field all back together with the exception of a couple. Tony Rominger, the champion of Switzerland, in the Swiss national colours there on the front of the race. And the great Rominger, having lost his world hour record to an absolutely brilliant Chris Boardman. A field over the top of the climb, stringing out, but no big effort here at the moment. The gap, they've lost a little bit on the climb, having Salmon and Zinchenko. Salmon, he turned pro last year, in fact. He's only 22. He is on a French team determined to succeed here today, and as the young whippersnapper of the squad, he's been told to go out front and set the pace and just see what will happen. Zinchenko, 24, turned pro the year before in 1994. They've gone away right from the gun today. Gianni Bugno showing signs of a return to form. You never quite know where you are with Gianni. He's great, he's indifferent, and sometimes he is absolutely useless. And it does annoy his spectators and his fans. The press, of course, he's always falling out with them because of things they say about Gianni. But one thing is for certain, this man has an immense amount of talent. Alberto Ellie comes up and gives him a hand too. They're trying to just keep the tempo here, which is a very fast one, just to limit the escape. Italians always ride to a strict plan, but very often for the Italians, the World Championships does go wrong. Last World Champion they had was Gianni Bugno himself. He picked up the title way back now in in 1992, at least it seems way back. Of course, defending his title he won in Stuttgart in 1991. And as we watch the riders here on the steeper of the two climbs, the Crespira, brings back memories. I wasn't there, by the way, in 1953 when Fausto Coppi, the great Italian Campionissimo, won the world title here in Lugano by 6 minutes and 22 seconds ahead of the Belgian duo Germain de Rijke, and at 7.5 minutes came the great Stan Ockers. But there was no doubt who the real champion was that day, Fausto Coppi. Well, the race has moved on now as we are approaching the climb here. We are on lap number 8. And for over 125 kilometres, those two riders have been out in front, but it's been the steady tempo riding, largely by the Italians, to regain control of this World Championship. The Spanish, you can see them in second and third place here, are watching every move, but they're banking on Olano, I think, today. Salmon knows that it's all over, but Zinchenko is going to just try and make the agony last that little bit longer. Salmon is going to wait as the field freewheel down as we move into now what is the action. In fact, that breakaway of 2, apart from set of tempo which will have shed a few riders, hasn't really done a lot of damage out there today. The French were not evident in defending for Salmon at all. They've hid themselves always in the top 10, keeping an eye on the action but not doing anything specifically. And now the field has wiped them all out. And that looks like the arm of Motorola rider Axel Merckx that's gone up here. He's calling for Dad to see if he'll pop along and speak to his son, because the great Eddy Merckx, who is still as big an enthusiast as he ever was in cycling, is the director sportif or manager of the selection team for Belgium, although he's threatening to pack it all in at the end of this year. There he comes. What's up, son? The nice thing about Eddy is he's never pushed Axel Merckx into being a cyclist, but Axel himself wanted to be, and this year, of course, he's won his first race. There was no one happier than his father. In fact, when he did win that race, Paul Schoen and myself did ring up Eddy Merckx and congratulate him on Axel's victory, and Eddy was a little bit high on champagne, and yet he knew every move done by Axel Merckx, how he'd won it, where he'd attacked, how the wind was blowing. His enthusiasm is unbelievable. Now we see, in fact, on the front here now, we've got Tony Rominger, and he's really causing a little bit of pain. The race is coming together, and we are at the end of lap number 8. Rominger takes them through, and Laurent Roux, the little man that made himself quite famous in this year's Tour de France, in second place. Fernando Escartin of Spain, he was the rider went through in third. And I think it was Marco Fincati, or Fincato of Italy, through there in fourth. And the Giro d'Italia winner, Pavel Tonkov, right up there too. He's riding, of course, in his national colours for Russia. Always difficult. This is the only time of the year when we get to commentate on riders wearing their national jerseys rather than their racing team strip. Although rules have relaxed over the years now, because as you can see, the professionals still carry their advertising, but in the old days you weren't allowed to say who your sponsor was. But now the pressure is getting on a little bit at the front of the race here. Fincato is setting it. As they're all packing on the climb again, as we're now moving on to the 9th lap, and over the top of the hill once more. And this is Fabian Jecker, season wide, right out at the beginning of the season with a crash in March, now trying to salvage something from the event. Well, overall, of course, it's 15 laps, but any time now you would expect somebody to try and get away from the field. It's been a very fast pace. Very few laps have dipped inside 37 kilometers an hour. There's the average so far, 38.410. It's a very quick speed indeed. And a lot of riders sensing that the pressure is on here and the place is at or near the front. The white jersey of Max Chandry also near the front. Had an excellent Olympic Games in third place. The Olympic champion, by the way, Pascal Richard, hasn't started, and despite the fact the race is here in his hometown or home country of Switzerland, but I think mentally he's done for the season. He's got his gold medal in the Olympic Games, and to re-prepare for the world title just wasn't on for him. Times are changing now, of course, with the Olympic Games open to all cyclists, not just the amateur riders, and so now for the first time we can have an Olympic champion and a world champion. And one day, I wonder, we'll probably get the same man winning both titles. Sharvarenko also watching near the front, a surprising rider, keeps coming up with the results. Rode terrifically well in Paris Tours. Wiped out after a long breakaway, almost in sight of the line. In fact, he was in sight of it because it's a long finishing straight in Tours, but he couldn't get there quick enough, and the brilliant timing of the peloton gave it back to the sprinters. Minali was the winner there, who's also had a very good season this year. Fabulous sprinter. Came to the fore in 1994 when he won a stage of the Tour de France in Portsmouth in England. Now, a little bit of aggravation starting here. It looks like Ramon Gonzalez Arrieta, number 4 at the back. And it looks like the style of Pascal Hervé of France, rider who rode so well in this year's Tour du Pont. Also grabbed the pink jersey of leader of the Giro d'Italia, albeit for one day this year too. And being joined by an Italian who's just flown up, and it looked to me as though it was Guidi. So one or two riders trying to bridge the gap. 4 riders we've got down there. We'll wait for the confirmation of that 4th man. And in fact, it looks like it might be the whole peloton has come back altogether. I think it was Max Chandri, in fact, who was the 4th man in our picture. But anyway, it's all back together again. Just going through there was Guidi, the Italian. And there is Hervé back in the bunch, looking over his shoulder to see if there's any chance of a little bit of help up here. The pace is very, very quick indeed. Well, it's turned out to be a marvellous autumnal day here. And that is the list of the leaders of this peloton: Chanteur, Hervé, Guidi, Fedegato, Cuesta Lopez. And they, in fact, they've cracked, because this is a group that's gone clear. And there's a lot more riders here than they've just told us, because we've also got here Klaus Moller of Denmark. The other Frenchman is Pascal Chanteur, as well as Hervé. Number 20 is Fedegato, who's had a brilliant end of season, hasn't he, with his World Cup victories. Zuller setting the tempo with Rominger at the front. To the Swiss have got Mauro Gianetti, and there he is on the far side in this leading group, but he is the only Swiss rider, I think, who's made it. Cuesta Lopez is the man setting the pace for Spain. There's Gianetti. Oh no, there's another Swiss rider here, and that is Oscar Camazind of Switzerland. Now this looks to be about a dozen riders to me. Pascal Hervé, strange climbing style, seems to put all his weight in a straight back right through the front of those pedals as he goes up the hill. Adjusting the glasses is Camazin, who seems to have been told by Gianetti perhaps to set the pace. There's Gianetti, and gritting his teeth. Just behind him there we've got the Spanish rider, and that is Cuesta Lopez. Well, you can probably hear the crowd as well as I can, but just look at them, they're really enjoying them. The Swiss fighting with the Italians. Lugano getting the championship at a late stage, comparatively so, after a little bit of problems getting the organisation to settle down where the championships would be this year. But here they are. They've made a great job of them, and they've been pretty lucky with the weather. They've had a wet day for the time trial for the men, won by Alex Zuller. But apart from that, the weather has been quite kind. But it's always a risk, and will be for the foreseeable future, to put on these World Championships at a time of the year, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, when you can expect the weather to change quickly. But the gamble certainly has paid off here. The organisation is excellent, and the crowd, as you can see, apparently numbering around 150,000 around the circuit. And you can't complain too much about that, as Kamazind is setting a hot pace here. I think he is the man who's been told to go and do something. Keep this speed high. There's some good riders in this breakaway. From France, we've got Pascal Hervé and Pascal Chanteur. From Spain, Cuesta Lopez. The Italians have got Ferragato here, so they wish to put, and Putini, by the way, but they wish to put 3 in every break. Hasn't quite worked yet, has it? Germany's Kai Hundredmarkt used to ride for Motorola. Gianetti is along for the ride with Kamazind, and he's a danger because, of course, he is almost a local, Gianetti. Denmark have got Klaus Moller and Peter Menets. And this is the pack. Laurent Dufaux in evidence too with Alex Zula, but the time gap is building at the minute. Claudio Chiappucci having a little go as well. But the Italians will be a little bit handicapped now because they have got a good rider in Ferragato up the road. Fabrizio Guidi, for me, is a man that just poised to win something big soon. He's knocking on the door. '95 is Klaus Moller. Somebody's opened the door and left a little bit of a gap, and it'll have to be shut down. We've come behind Guidi, who's sitting on the wheel now of Hervé. Klaus Moller. And it looks as though Kamazind looking for the rear of the group now. He's been doing a lot of work. Now, that really does look like an autumn picture as the riders approach the feeding station. Very difficult for professional cyclists at this stage of the development of the calendar, because the season's starting now really in January, racing all over the southern hemisphere, and by February you've got the traditional races in the south of France, and then you have all of the classic races followed by the 2 big tours, and Italy no longer a race that it can be called a preparation race for the Tour de France. It's a race within its own right. People are saying it's no longer possible to win both. I'm sure someone will prove us all wrong sooner or later. Johan Museo. It's his birthday today, by the way, October the 13th for Johan. His 31st birthday. And he's made the split as well. The only Belgian rider to do so. Gianetti wearing 41. I guess that makes him the leader of the Swiss team. And it would have been nice, I must say, to have seen the American Bobby Julich in this breakaway. Simply because he's having such a great end of term. A marvellous Vuelta de España, where he finished as, well, where he was the leader, I think it was for 9 days as the king of the mountains, and then finished 9th overall. So he should have a lot of confidence now. Apparently he's been bombarded with offers to turn pro, but it appears at the start this morning he was speaking to journalists and telling them that he was accepting the offer from Cyril Guimard's team, Cofidis. Clock counting down the time gap. 4 hours 20 now in the saddle. Coming up to the end of lap number 10. Leaving us just 5 laps to go at the feed. Oh, well, there's a crash. Zula's gone down. Alex Zula has slipped away and caught in the melee there. The French rider Laurent Brochard always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Brochard, you remember the crash up behind Jan Zurada in the Tour de France? He went over the top of him there as well. Well, Zula was the one rider left behind, and I think he's going to go out of the race, so the world champion time trialist is not going to get a chance at the double. The pressure is remaining on here. The Swiss, even though they have Zula down, continue to push the pace with Kamazind in the front. Probably unaware of the crash at the feed. And this is a fine piece of riding here by Kamazind. Taps out the tempo. Back out onto the climb. Up to Camano again. Claudio Chiappucci starting to run down from being a top cyclist these days. I think age must be catching up at last with the devil, but he's still a very, very popular character indeed. And little Claudio heading up with Tony Rominger sitting behind him, the former world hour record holder now, who intends to attack it again. But to join these World Championships, the UCI, the Union Cycliste Internationale, has decided to limit those famous Superman handlebars, which produce so many world records on the track in Manchester for the World Championships there. The first year, by the way, that the World Championships track and road have been separated. Manchester showing the track, and some unbelievable times recorded in the pursuits, both team, individual, for men and for women. Those handlebars have had their wings clipped, and that, you know, might mean that Tony Rominger will not be able to get back the record that he held for the hour. This breakaway still clear. 100 mark, Cuesta Lopez, Giannetti, Camonzin, Hervé, Klaus Moller, Johan Museo, Fabrizio Guidi. Little chat going on at the back there, and that is Felice Puttini. The other Swiss rider, I think earlier I said he was Italian, but of course Puttini, despite his Italian name, is Swiss. And so the Swiss have got 3 riders in this breakaway, and the Italians have in fact got only Ferragato. So they're hatching a little plan, I think. It really is quite remarkable. This has been the year of the Swiss in many, many ways, having totally eclipsed the Vuelta with the top 3 places. And now Alex Uller has produced the goods along with Barbara Heave to have 2 world champions from this series here. And now in this breakaway, they've got 3 riders. And with Giannetti, of course, he is the man most likely to succeed. He's made no secret about the fact he wants to. This great little rider who has a lot of courage on his hands. And I'm pretty sure that the other 2, Puttini and Giannetti, have told Camonzin to set the pace until his legs will take him no further. The lead at the end of the 10th circuit was 1 minute and 59 seconds when we saw Chiappucci there leading through the chase group. The Italians, again, for my money, have made a mistake. You know, there may have been a slight disruption of the tempo as well with the crash by Zulla in the feeding station. But they might feel a little bit compromised now with Ferragato in this front group. The Italian, who turned pro back in 1991, but really we came to notice him this year, 1996, when he won the World Cup Leeds Classic, and then he went over and picked up the Grand Prix of Swiss, and has become a real challenger in the World Cup race now to Johan Museo, with 2 World Cup counting events still to come. The Japan World Cup will close the 11-race series there, and then the other race is the Giro de Lombardia. Lange Jalabert deciding that the strength in the French might not be quite what it should be up in that breakaway with Chanteur and Hervé. Jalabert looking for somebody, itching in fact for somebody to start a reaction, and then he wouldn't get blamed for chasing down his teammates. Nicola Bartoli, another man enjoying a fine season, slipped onto his back wheel. I think it's Dufault of Switzerland who's the marker for the Swiss teammates out front. Three of them trying to bridge the gap, but I don't think they're going to get very far just yet. But there's 4 of them now, and it looks as though this is beginning to be quite a strong race group. Bartoli through in 2nd place, 2nd in the Grand Prix of Swiss. 5th in the Leeds Classic, and of course probably equally great was his 8th place in the Olympic Games, but they were all outwitted there by a very strong breakaway. Axel Merckx is the man who's latched onto the back of those 4 or 3. But Merckx handicapped by the fact that their best man, Johan Museo, is in the breakaway. And you know, so talking about Museo, we have not seen Museo do any work at all in that breakaway. He's either taking the pace a little bit hard, or he's working the odds out against him. He's the only Belgian rider in that front group. But the field, Bartoli has checked it out. Dufault, Lange Jalabert, they've jumped onto the back. There goes Merckx, number 53. And the Spaniards, in fact, have brought the race basically together. A little bit of a struggle behind to close the gaps, but they're all coming together. Merckx still looking for a little bit of the action. And back to the feed, and news has reached us now that in fact Alex Zülle did not continue. He's pulled out of the World Championships, but not too seriously hurt. It does seem strange commentating on a world title when the leaves are on the road like this. Karmazin and Museo, maybe I did him an injustice. He's right there now, to the right of our picture, bringing the race through. Karmazin briefly slipped back into second place, but not for long. He is definitely the man who's been designated ride until you drop by his teammates. He's doing all of the work here, coming through to the end of lap number 11. As Karmazin takes through Klaus Mola, Kai Undertmark, Mauro Gianetti, Ferragato, Museo, Cuesta Lopez, Chanteur. It's about all the eyes could gather in at that time, but they're all there. Kai Undertmark, he made his mark when he turned pro by a fine 5th place in the World Championships. Again, a man who has had big moments but never really been consistent. He rode with Motorola briefly. He's now gone across to Telecom. The last World Championships too for the Motorola riders without their team leader Lance Armstrong. And the field coming through the feed at just on 2 minutes down, more or less. Well, by the time they get to the finish line, it'll be more than 2 minutes. It'll be the best part of 3, because there's still a little ride to the finishing line. And Bobby Julich on the front gets what he wants. His musette for the rest of the ride. Good to see Bobby there, but he'll be very, very upset with himself, I'm sure of that, having missed his breakaway. Another man anxious to see what was in the bag was Max Chandry for the riding in the colours of the British Cycling Federation. There he is on the far right. And now through the finishing line, and yes, the time is slipping away. It's now going to be 2 minutes 41 seconds. So Bobby Julich looking quite a different rider these last few weeks, and it's good to see him developing. All of the Motorola riders that seem to have found themselves contracts with all the top teams around the world, which gives you some idea of the respect that that team has held. Very sad indeed to see the loss of the American sponsor, who have been a most gracious sponsor, staying in the sport for 6 years. Well, the Swiss really have had their money's worth, supporting their own champions. And again, it's Karmazin. Well, if Mauro Gianetti or Puttini do manage to win this World Championship, but with Puttini would be something of a surprise. With Gianetti, I suspect he should have been a marked man among many riders today because of his ability. But I think they'll owe a big debt of thanks to the fine riding here by Karmazin, because he's making it very hard for everybody to get across, although there are those who are trying. This looks like Luc Leblanc pushing that huge gear on the climb to try and bridge the gap, but the field are right after him. So they may have made a mistake, and there's still time to find that out with that breakaway, but they're letting no one else go, and this is often the case, of course. They chase down riders, but these little flourishes of activity surely are beginning to eat into the gap of that breakaway. But now they've picked up Leblanc. Quite clearly the French are feeling that their 2 riders up front are not the men for the job. We've seen Jalabert, we haven't seen Richard Virenque yet. But there's still time. Here's the breakaway. No prizes for guessing who's doing all of the work. In second place is Undertmark, third is Gianetti, then comes Ferragato. Gianetti, by the way, has always been a man for the World Championships, as well as the classic victories he got. He won the Liège-Bastogne-Liège and the Amstel Gold Race last year, but he also took 4th place in the World Championship as well as a fine 17th place overall in the Tour of Spain. Over the top of the Crespira. There's a nice little bit of work there for the road repairers by the look of it after this World Championship goes away. The main field struggling over the top as well, and it looks as though there's a little bit of a splinter group. Massive crowds. And the pressure being applied yet again. This is the chase group, and they're trying now to split up this bunch. And it's the Swiss riders who are pushing the pace. A little bit surprised about that. Axel Merckx is following. There's Rominger on the left of our picture and Laurent Dufaux. Almost a conversation going on there. Merckx looks over his shoulder to see what's going on. Jalabert is mixing as well. This is a tough one up the climb this time. Little bit of decision time as the top boys pushing these enormous gears as they do in professional racing these days. And the power of that group of very talented bike riders is hurting the peloton. Back with the leaders now. Ferrigato swings off to our right. Over the top. Jalabert. And they've got themselves a little gap. Now, can they do something with it? They know the time is running out. They have got to get this race together. And they're trying desperately to get something going here. Chasing the television camera, not the best of ideas, but at the moment it looks as though the camera having a little bit of a problem to get out of range of the riders. The Italians are worried, that's for sure now. The French are a little bit frustrated. And in fact, it's a marvellous piece of blocking being done by Axel Merckx, because he's just going with the moves and trying to stop everybody else getting involved. That's Andrew Taffy who's on the front. Pointing at Merckx, no good. And it's no good telling you about the guys behind either, because they're Swiss. And so they're very frustrated, the Italians. They've made a big mistake, as they often do in World Championships, despite the fact that there's a big bonus for the riders if they can get the world champion back home to Italy. And we've gone back up to the leading group, which still remaining very compact. Puttini and Giannetti sitting at the back and sharing a bottle together, while the other man setting the pace and continuing to do so. Pascal Chanteur just behind him. Ferrigato in third slot. Well, everybody in this breakaway clearly aware of what the instruction has to be to Oscar Camazin, and they're not prepared to help him while he keeps up such a high speed, because they know riding at this speed there's going to be very little improvement from the peloton behind. Marks talking to his team car down below. And Bjarne Riis of Denmark, who was didn't really make it a secret. He started to train with determination again in preparation for the World Championships. He's not in the breakaway. Two of his teammates are, but they're not doing anything to contribute to the pace. So there's still a lot of tactical cards to be played here at the moment. Since his great Tour de France victory, Bjarne Riis has become a major star in Denmark, where he went home to civic celebrations before transferring to the Olympic Games, where he rode. Had a lot of bad luck actually. He was puncturing in the Atlanta race.